Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Underworld Awakening is over. Cue the nudity fog.
It's not a human being. It's a blight of nature.
I was held captive for 12 years.
Subject to escape to somewhere in the building.
Now, humans hunt the lichens and vampires. This is a new war.
I used to hear stories of the Death Eaters, that they were a thing of the past, never to return.
I don't recognize this world.
We've lived safely for years, and now you've brought humans into this covenant. We stand and we fight.
Something else escaped.
Whatever it is, it's more powerful than any of us.
Andy, the PVC is still here, but most importantly, we also have a replacement covering for the PVC. If you wanted to learn, let's say you're out there in movie land and you want to learn about all the other things that you can do to cover your body when you're not wearing your PVC, where would you go?
I'm really glad you asked, Pete. It's very important. This is a question that I think comes up in a lot of people's minds. The best place they can go is to join the Next Reels community over on Discord, where they can get in on the conversations and learn all about replacements for PVC outfits. You can head over to thenextreel.com/membership and you can learn all about it.
All right, Andy, we're here. We've made it to movie 4. Now, this is the first one in the series that you had not seen at all, correct?
Second
or no, it's the
one.
second one you hadn't seen.
Right.
All right, so you had missed the complete flashback episode that we just undertook in Rise of the Lycans, and now we're back with Awakening. And I was excited for you to watch this movie because we have a pattern, right? This is a new war. We had the thousands of years flashback, and now we come back to the present, and the universe is completely reset. It's a whole new thing. The Lycans and the vampires are out in the open. We have a father-son Lycan duo. That's always a win in Disney movies. Let's see if it works here. What do you think? How did this movie hit you?
Well, it's interesting to kind of point that out, that, we're taking a shift in the way that this universe is structured, and we have humans now in the know. It felt very much like, well, they were trying to kind of do a reset and trying to come up with something new and unique that could really shake things up. And I appreciate that they tried doing that. I think that can lend itself to some interesting storytelling. I do feel it ends up feeling a little bit like X-Men, like they were pulling a lot from kind of that X-Men narrative about, there's something different out there, we have to stop it, speaking from the human perspective. And so I think that they really there was a lot of that. I felt that they really were kind of pushing into this particular story. And also I felt that they missed the opportunity of bringing Ethan Hawke in for all of the parts where they were having the purge, because I really felt like having him and possibly his family fending off vampires and werewolves in their house really would have been a perfect way to kind of start this story.
You were 100% right. This is a huge missed opportunity, especially in 2012. Man. Yeah, right. Let's Underworldia meets Purge. I totally get it.
But I mean, I do think that it's. I mean, without talking about the quality of the film, I do appreciate that they were trying to find a way to kind of say, okay, what can we do that shakes things up?
Yes, I agree. And it is noted that you, I think, are stalling on talking about the quality of the film. Okay. All right. That's fair. What do you think about the Awakening? Who is Awakening? Because we talked about this with evolution. We have no idea who the hell evolved. And now we're awakening, and there is some question. Who awakens? Who doesn't awaken? Who are we talking about?
Well, it wasn't Robert De Niro.
No. Robin Williams was nowhere.
All right. I mean, obviously it's Selene and I guess to a certain extent Michael, right? Because
they were literally asleep.
They have a 12-year slumber.
Right.
Not the okay.
But we also have the Lycans, which have been apparently dogged into the dark, and they are coming back. And not only are they coming back, Andy, one of them's huge.
Well, okay, but here's the thing. It's been 12 years since this purge started, and they've been trying to, humans, once they've discovered that vampires and werewolves are out there, they have adapted their own technologies using daylight and, I guess, garlic spray. I'm not sure exactly what, to kind of find out who is who, and then they can just kill them. And so there are very few werewolves and vampires left in the world, to the point where the humans are kind of at a point where they think that they've killed most of them. If anything, it's a pretty minor threat at this point. I mean, they're still watching for signs, but it's, they're not at the purge levels anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So vampires and werewolves, certainly there is an awakening of those two groups in the course of the film. So I think that's actually an interesting point to bring up. I think there is kind of the more literal one with Selene actually waking up from her frozen slumber where she's been frozen for 12 years.
And her spawn. Right.
And her daughter, and eventually Michael. Right. Yeah.
Everybody is asleep and awakening, both culturally and like this is our first introduction to the fact that the people of the planet of Underworldia actually now know that all these things exist. That's kind of an awakening. There is so much awakening, in fact, that you wonder if anyone will ever sleep again.
That's very true.
So much awakening. All right.
So much.
So we start with the flashback again. The flashback to get us caught up. Is that mechanic still working for you in number 4? My note said, why the hell are we watching these movies back to back? Because I think it's super obnoxious and getting really annoying hearing Selene's voice at the beginning telling us what happened for the last 3 movies. I'm done.
It is. And I get it when it's a 3-year gap, but you just don't need it. It's just, especially because we're, at least the very first 2 films were just on-screen text that just kind of gave you a write-up, which, is less obnoxious to me. It's just kind of a stage setter. In this particular case, we're getting flashbacks of scenes from the previous movies, and we're getting all sorts of stuff that it's just like, okay, I've just watched these movies. And even if I had waited 3 years, I just feel like you just don't need that. I feel like other filmmakers have proven the point that you just don't need to lay all that on so thick to remind everybody.
Well, because, it's not even just a short thing, right? It's like the clips from past movies from, the hero shots of the werewolves and the hero shots of the vampires and the Selene fighting shots and the Selene slamming the lingerie-clad vampire ladies in the sewer and it's so many of those kinds of clips that I think they're just really tiresome. So I don't think the films need that mechanic, and yet it leans so heavily on that mechanic in this movie.
It does, and it's kind of frustrating, and it's I just feel like we're past the point where they need to do that. I also feel that this is an interesting direction to take when they had this, as we talked about in the previous previous several conversations actually, about how they had kind of laid out this trilogy idea, and the third film would be this flashback film to the early days of the Lycan vampire war. And here we are in this place after the third film, which was largely a Lycan positive film. We like the Lycans now. They have been slaves to the vampires, and they have this rise up. And so I felt like this was a strange shift to, after that film, to go back to a place where, oh yeah, Lycans are bad again.
Right. You remember how you need to be emotionally drawn to the Lycans? Now they're just monstrous automatons again. Now they're just the things that run on the walls. I think
they're either rats in the streets,
right,
or evil scientists.
Right. But we also have the standout extra large Lycan. We have it's like the superhero of all Lycans, and he's twice the size of the Lycans. He gets injections of special Lycan enlarger gel in his eyeball. Did not care for that.
I was wondering how you would take that.
And he looks like the lead singer to Coldplay.
I struggled with the fact that we had a person who just would turn into a giant Lycan, like Hulk, like literally, like he was huge. And she said, twice as big. And I was like, I feel like he's like 5 times as big. I mean, he was very, very
massive.
big.
Yeah, massive.
Yeah. And it just, okay, sure. It's scientists who are working on kind of evolving the Lycan science so that they can find all these great ways to improve. And as we learn, they're trying to use Selene and Michael's daughter, Eve, use her genes to further evolve them so they don't have a intolerance to silver and stuff like that. And I don't know. I just felt like it was a real stretch with some of these things that I don't know. I struggled with the directions they were going.
So did you find that you liked it? Before we get into a little bit more detail, did you find you in any way that you liked the movie?
I had fun with this one. Yes,
Yeah.
I did have fun with it. I had heard actually that this one really was kind of a great reset to the franchise and it really sets things back on track. I don't know if I really agree with that. I was like, I think I have more questions now after watching this film than I had before. And I struggled with that, but I still had fun with it. More fun than I had with the third film.
All right. So in terms of setting the time, the movie takes place after our flashback extravaganza. The movie starts 9 days after the reveal of the vampire virus. That's what it says, the non-human species. In the 9 days since the first discovery of the non-human species, right? That sets our time.
Right.
Selene has been asleep for 12 years. So they've managed to keep it all secret for 12 years, or 12 years minus 9 days. And now there's some reveal happens. And the world rallies against the vampires so fast. Do you agree? Like, they marshal mass response over the course of 9 days, which I think is more important right now because we're in the middle of the reveal of a pandemic.
Yeah.
And we're not doing it right. And so I worry that not enough people have seen Underworld Awakening who are in authority to do something about the response to a pandemic.
Well, I'll tell you the difference, though, Pete.
What is the difference,
You can't
please?
shoot a gun at coronavirus.
That's true.
The difference.
But you can shine light
We're
on
humans.
it, Andy.
People want guns in their hands. You can't. The problem is, people need guns because, as she says, human beings no longer kill each other. We are the enemy they've been waiting for. And so, coronavirus isn't the enemy we've been waiting for. It's just not as fun to shoot guns at it.
You're right. I missed the whole point.
Before we jump into kind of the more specifics of this film, I feel like we should bring up that there is an animated setup for this film.
Good timing, yeah.
It's called Underworld Endless War, and it was a 3-parter, each one about 5 minutes. It came out when the initial, I think it was the Blu-ray that with the first 3 films, it was a special feature on that. And it was 3 anime stories, part 1, part 2, and part 3, about Selene over time as she is battling this family, these 3 Lycan brothers, and kind of battling one in each particular story. And they take place in 1890, 1967, and 2012. And it is kind of like you see the setup of things as the vampires and Lycans are kind of moving through time, always in Paris in this particular film, which is a good clue for us. In Underworldia, we know, has Paris in it. They have a Paris too.
Under
That's
Parisia.
an important note. Yes.
Yeah.
And they also were very early technology adopters. Her guns in 1890 felt like really modern guns.
Well,
and the
as we
Lycans
know,
had a daylight
you're right.
grenade in 1967.
Absolutely. We learned that everything we have, everything that we've built, our technology infrastructure comes from vampires and Lycans right now. And I think they're the unheralded heroes of information technology and military technology, truly.
The problem, though, Pete, is that the history books aren't written by the vampires and Lycans. That's
Because
why.
History books are written by the winners, Andy.
That's right.
Not losers.
Not these loser vampires and werewolves.
We clearly decimated them. At some point, we decimated them. They are sleeping. Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
But it is important because the last story, which is in 2012, happens in this period of the purge, right? Now humans know what's going on.
So what do you think? Did you learn something about this? About the thing that you didn't know? Was it useful? addenda?
No, but I mean, if anything, it sets up. Okay, so we know the first two films essentially take place back to back. So essentially 2003, right?
Right.
So I guess I'd say between 2003 and 2012, when that's kind of the third of the anime films takes place, that's the period somewhere in there. And I'm assuming it's pretty close to 2012. No, it can't be because, well, I guess it can be. I don't know. I guess I don't know what I know. What have you learned from it? All I know is that if all of that happens, like if the beginning of this film, when humans figure out what's going on, happens as close to that story as everything else, I mean, there are a few things. Either she and Michael have been on the run and have been leading their own newly evolved lives since 2003, and now it's 2012 and the purge is happening. Because if there is this 12-year period where they're frozen, this whole film is taking place maybe 2015. If they're still alive in 2012, then now we're looking at closer to like 2024. When the bulk of this film is taking place.
Oh, geez. You're right. Nope, they've tied it in knots again.
The animated film threw me because I thought I had everything figured out where it was all taking place in 2015, like the bulk of this film. But now I guess we're looking at 2024. So this is a feature film.
Because they've been asleep and she's still
frozen
hunting.
for 12 years.
And
we know she was at least not frozen in 2012, according to the animated film.
Okay, you're right. Yep, 2024. All right, so maybe it's your future guns that we haven't earned yet.
That's what it is.
But
it makes sense then for the police, because now we're just looking at the Metro Police, which is the most generic police we could possibly have. So I guess that makes sense that Underworldia would have such police.
And Under Parisia has Metro Police.
Yes,
all they do is work on the subway. We also have in this animated thing, I mean, they pulled in all of the tropes, especially the visual and stunt tropes, which we have, again, in the film. We have the spinny flying vampire stars flying at our faces multiple times. We get those, which is always fun. We have the winged victory jumping pose that she does, her kind of hero pose, and she does it a number of times in the first 5 minutes of the movie. She really likes it. Mm-hmm. Plus, they include it in the flashback, so she's always got her arms out and one knee up. And it's kind of ridiculous in one place. I don't even believe Selene could jump off the building like she does and turn as quickly as she does in midair and hang on to the flagpole or whatever she's hanging on to pull the guy off. But I will say there are some fun fight sequences. I think once again, this movie is adept at answering the question, you know what would be cool, without answering the question, but really though? And I think that is a true statement about the entire universe of Underworldia. There's stuff in here that looks cool if you truck with the universe. And as we move on, the more reviews I'm reading about people who are really getting tired of Underworld, is they're particularly tired of, even as they've reset the narrative in this movie, they're tired of the look and the production design, the elements of the film that make up kind of what it is. They land so hard, movie after movie, on looking the same that it's just fatiguing now here at, everything is so blue. Like there just is, like there is too much allegiance to what they think an Underworld movie has to look like. It is now suffering from a dearth of creativity in moving the narrative forward. What do you think about that?
I think that exactly sums it up. I think that there is a very strong element in here where you can tell they are, as I said, they're trying to come up with interesting story angles to advance the story.
Yes.
I definitely appreciate that. But yes, that is a big part of the problem, is it just feels like they've settled so heavily on kind of the vision of this world that they haven't found a way to kind of evolve that. And it just feels like we're just in the same thing over and over and over again. What can we do to get out of this? And it's especially now that Selene's fine in the sunlight.
Yeah, fine in the sunlight. And so is her buddy David, because of the whole heart thing. Everybody, but wait, I may have stepped on myself, because I think I may be referring to the last movie. Did I just refer to the last movie?
Yeah, I was trying to think of David. I'm not sure. Well, no, she pumps his heart here.
Okay, good. I don't
think that has anything to do with seeing the sunlight. unless I'm
Well,
missing something.
No, have you watched the last movie yet?
I haven't.
Okay,
I
then
haven't.
I've stepped on the last movie. I'm sorry, Andy.
Okay.
Now you know. Now
Jeez.
you know. Everybody's trucking in the sunlight in the last movie. Just the vampires. Yeah. No, never mind. Okay, because go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. Finish your point.
No, clearly there was no point because it's a point for Blood Wars, and I can't talk about it. Oh, my whole point is I get tripped up just now talking about spoilers for the movie that you haven't seen yet because they're the same movie.
Well,
that's a real problem right now.
Oh, yeah. It starts hitting this point of frustration where it's trying to figure out like what story are we looking at here? Because it still is a vampire lichen war here. It's just the lichens are now super scientists figuring out how they can evolve their lichen brethren, and you have the vampires living in some super elaborate secret cave at some hydroelectric dam or something. I don't know.
Of course it's a hydroelectric dam.
Yeah,
what are the lichens, to your understanding, what are the lichens trying to evolve? What are they trying to do?
Well, I mean, obviously they have, because they have Super Son. He's this giant werewolf. And so my understanding is Stephen Ray's character is, I don't know why it's taken 12 years, but he's trying to use the DNA from subjects 0, 1, and 2, which is Selene, Michael, and their daughter Eve, trying to, well, one, build a tolerance to silver, like so that they can't be killed by silver anymore, and trying to improve their healing so that they heal really fast, which they kind of already did, but I guess even faster, and their size, trying to improve their size. So things like that, it's like, but also I'm not completely sure I understand exactly what the motivations are at the end, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't it sound like they were planning on mating the son with the daughter?
Yeah. Yeah, that's sure what it sounded like to me, Andy.
Kind of gross.
What are they trying to create here when mating Gigantor the werewolf with the 14-year-old or 13 or 12-year-old? Who is already a hybrid offspring.
She's a hybrid. Well, so she's a hybrid.
A tribrid? A tribrid.
Because he's a vampire werewolf blend. She's a vampire immortal blend.
And so it's a quadbrid.
No, it's a tribrid.
Well, because the vampire counts only once. Right. It is a tribrid. It's a tribrid.
Yeah. And human, if that counts, but I don't.
All right.
I feel like that just doesn't even count anymore when you get to this point.
It does not. It does not. No. It is very confusing. I don't know what. And here's the problem that I have with this, because the people who wrote this thing, I felt like had such opportunity, and they're smart people. I am a fan of J. Michael Straczynski. I'm a fan of his work. I was a big fan of Babylon 5. I think he's great at world building in fantasy worlds. And what happened? Why was he not given more control? This was another one that has a lot of people. Len Wiseman has a writing credit on here. John Hlavin and J. Michael Straczynski, Alison Burnett, with a story by Len Wiseman and John Hlavin. It's just a lot of, and of course, characters, Danny McBride. It's a lot of people in the reset. And I feel like there is some DNA, some Straczynski DNA in here, particularly the hyper-militarization, amping up the militarization and the organization and the responses to the vampire outbreak. And I feel like they just weren't able to free themselves of the yoke of the 3 movies that came before in order to actually deliver something original and new that feels as good as the opportunity that they had before them.
It's a very confused, bloated story that also feels like it's achieving nothing. That's a little frustrating. And I'm not sure, I don't think I've seen anything else by the directing pair, Måns Mårlind and Björn Stein, a pair of Swedish directors. I know that they have done some other things that I just haven't seen. A lot of TV work, but I think in films, Storm, and that might have been the only film before this one, Shed No Tears and Swoon afterward, and 6 Souls. So yeah, I'm just not very familiar with their output, so I can't speak specifically to what they're bringing to the table.
What we're getting out of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And unfortunately, this is one where I really couldn't find much in the way of backstory as far as how did this pair come in to this franchise. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we should at least spend a little bit of time in Trope Corner. What did they add here to vampire and werewolf lore, or do away with that is of note?
Well, certainly it's I guess it's a trope that vampires can move very quickly.
Yes, it is.
That's
Yes.
And I don't know if it's because theoretically they're becoming a bat and moving somewhere and then popping out as a human somewhere else. I'm not exactly sure in the world of tropes.
I think it's because they actually remember there's the vampire mass adjustment continuum. They can change their mass at any time, and I think they become balloons. They become or vapor, and they move very fast.
That makes more sense.
This is another one. I'm very excited for you to see how they evolve this particular power ability in the next movie. Oh,
I'm looking
Andy,
forward to it.
Are you in
but
for it?
But we do at least, this one, we do get to see kind of a Jedi run.
Yes.
I mean, Selene really goes fast as she's running around in this one, running around in the lab.
Right.
So,
in the lab and there's a great hallway pass where she cuts all their throats. I mean, there's some very cool stuff going on here. Okay.
There is definitely so.
All
definitely so. We also have a trope, which is definitely an old trope trick where in this particular case, it's Selene, and she's watching this scene where the police are investigating a possible lichen attack, and she's trying to see if it's Michael, and she's looking, and we see the cop, and we kind of get in on his story, and then it's almost like he feels like someone's watching him, and he turns and looks, but no one's there. And then we cut back and we see that Selene has left her post. That is a trope that I feel like we've seen a million times in movies. The old, is somebody watching you or not trope.
Right. They're just over my shoulder. Yeah,
right.
Totally agree.
There's also the secretive scientists hiding what they're doing from authorities.
Mm-hmm. And funded by those
we don't know what's happening. Yeah.
Funded by the same authorities in the political machine and using their money for ill-gotten gains. Okay.
Right. We also have the possibly one of the silliest tropes of where you start a car by just jamming a knife into it really hard into the ignition.
Does that work? I'll tell you what, I'm going to wait. I need you to go try that on your car. Just a knife or a big flathead screwdriver. Just jam it as hard as you can in there.
Okay, hold on. Yeah. I'll be right back.
Wear rubber gloves. All right.
Yeah. We also have, I feel like this is definitely a vampire and werewolf trope that we have seen quite a bit. When they die, they get converted back to human form.
Yes.
And so it's just a human body laying there after all is said and done.
Because you have to hide the evidence. Then it's just a murder. Yeah. And now we have police, and we have that whole police angle. We're going to talk about that in a minute.
Speaking of that particular trope, I guess I'm confused because we do see as Selene is exploring this world that she's in 12 years into the future, her future, she goes into a store and sees that they're selling lichen and werewolf teeth.
Yes.
Now, how do you get lichen and werewolf teeth if they turn back to human form? Are you pulling them from live lichen and a live werewolf?
Pulling them from a live,
or lichen and vampire?
Werewolf. Yeah,
wow,
that's exactly what you're doing. You're somehow tricking them. You're distracting them long enough to get in there with pliers. And
they need dentists
pull
too,
them out.
Pete.
It's a dentist. It's a black market. There's a dentist in the black market who probably takes vampire or lichen teeth on trade for services rendered.
That's a crazy, crazy job.
You know what? Veterinarians. It's actually veterinarians.
Yeah, it is a veterinarian, right? This is the question, though, that I have. So Michael, he was converted. He was turned into a lichen in the first film.
We're talking about Michael as portrayed by Scott Speedman in the original movie.
Back in the very first film, Michael. He's turned into a lichen.
He's in this movie as a prop.
He and it's not even him. It's literal prop with his digital face on it.
Right.
Selene bites him.
Yes.
To feed on, not to feed on him, but to
feed him.
To feed him, to help him become come back to life after the fight that he's dying from. And so he becomes a hybrid. So in order to become a hybrid, you need to be bitten by a werewolf
Yeah.
or to feed on vampire blood.
If you're already a werewolf.
If you're anything, like to turn someone into a vampire,
You have to.
them
I
drink
think
your blood, or
the way I understand, I mean, the lore, as I understand it, is you have to both be bitten by a vampire and feed on a vampire. You have to have an exchange of
something
blood.
like that.
Yeah. There's an
I
exchange.
remember Winona Ryder very specifically drinking Gary Oldman's blood.
Yes.
She's take me away from all this death, and
Yes.
drinks his blood. So, okay. So now lycans are constantly biting and attacking vampires. Are they not worried about drinking that vampire blood and becoming hybrids themselves?
Apparently they are not. Apparently because science has said it's okay if the red shirt vampires or werewolves do it. But we have one gigantor werewolf who we're trying to inject it in his eyeballs. So don't worry about it. We're going to be fine, is pretty much what the universe says. You're right. You are really,
The nature of hybrid blood and how all this works is very, very specific.
It's so frustrating.
I feel like they'd all be hybrids.
They're all hybrid. That's the problem, is that they're all hybrids. And this is evolution. This is right. I mean, this should have been evolution, because now it's just survival of the fittest. It's like everybody's commingling now, and we're going to have one completely commingled race. And because these transitions happen so fast, right, within minutes, you're a vampire hybrid. Your ribcage expands, and now you're a new thing. There should be no purebloods anymore, is what I'm saying, with all the fighting that they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad we litigated that on the show.
Yeah, right. Back to tropes. Of course, there's the whole secret entrance to the lair with some crazy, I don't know, spiral stone staircase thing that drops into the ground.
Which is awesome. The spiral stone staircase thing in its ground is its own trope, and it's fantastic.
Totally is.
Yeah.
Totally is, yeah. And they're still very sloppy eaters. That vampire trope has not gone away.
That's true. Blood
and they still try to
face.
They're all over their faces.
Yeah.
And they still try to perpetuate the trope of the full moon, but I never really understand what for, because I don't feel like they're doing anything with the full moon.
No.
Ever.
No. It's the worst. Why do they do that? It's just a show. It's just for show. It's just for show.
Yeah. And then I have a line of dialogue that in and of itself is incredibly tropey. This is when Selene is working with the detective. He says, as they're trying to figure things out, he says this, and it's totally a trope. He says, "This goes much higher. I believe all the way to the top."
Oh, all the way to the top trope.
All the way to the top trope.
All the way to the top. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. I look at Mike Leahy, who played the detective, who I like very much. He was in Sleeper Cell, which was one of my very favorite shows. And I ask myself constantly while watching this movie, what are you doing here, Michael? What are you doing?
He's been in a lot of stuff, and I generally enjoy him when I see him in other projects. This is one of those ones where I did say, why are you in this? There's not really much here for you. I mean, I guess in context of being in a vampire werewolf movie, sure, there's some joy in just being in a big effects extravaganza. And like I said, it still is a fun enough movie. Yeah. It's not fun.
Right. No, it is not fun. Put it on the poster.
Oh.
Okay, we have, were there any other tropes that you wanted to walk through after secret entrances? Are we okay?
I feel like the only other one that is kind of a trope is that, at least this franchise has established it as a trope, is the whips. Once again, we have more whipping going on with these vampires, taking the whips out to attack.
This time it's David.
With.
David is the whipster. He's a real whipster.
Yeah.
And there are whipsters in the animated thing too. They really love their whips. And I think we've established whips are dumb. They just
except the ones they used in the olden days. Like those were really effective whips because they had giant knives, silver knives.
Yeah, no, they've totally forgotten the legacy of being a whipster. Like if you're a death
one
dealer,
of them to say, "Why do we use these again?" Oh, we didn't bring it up. This is, I don't know if we'd call it a trope, but it certainly was something established in the first film, which we loved a lot, is when Selene shoots the floor in a circle to fall through to the floor below.
Yes.
Here we have her doing something similar. And I was like, this was actually a really cool way to evolve that, was when she was in the elevator that was falling and she is shooting out in the elevator so that when it crashes, that she actually survives. I was like, that was actually... it was falling toward her. Right?
Toward her, and she shot so it would come down over her.
Yeah, so
because
she's shooting the
because
floor.
she increased her mass so that she could perforate the floor above her, and when it hit her, now colossus of a body, it punctures the floor out. It was so funny too, because let's see, I picked a movie this week on the Satmat that was Resident Evil Retribution 2012. Right? Same time. And if you look at the cover of Resident Evil Retribution, it's Mila Jovovich standing on the cover wearing a full PVC bodysuit, right? And if you watch the movie, like there are sequences straight up where Li Bingbing's character actually also in effectively a red PVC dress as Ada Wong, she actually shoots the floor to jump through the floor. This was a big deal, these stunt sequences that are the same. It's like the virus of shooting through the floor in PVC that took over thanks to Underworld, which I think is great. I think it's fascinating that they sort of, dare I say, infect each other.
Can I just bring up something else that you brought up on the Saturday matinee this past week, or not this past week, I guess a few weeks ago?
Yeah.
Because it was double-fisted gunplay, and it was on the Saturday matinee when we, right after we talked about the first Underworld film. You also brought up the film Equilibrium.
I did.
And I just have to say, that came out the year before Underworld, and those performers in that film, they weren't wearing PVC outfits, but they were wearing very, very sharp black outfits.
Yes.
And they were running around with plenty of double-fisted gunplay and all sorts of kind of interesting attacks and everything. And I'm surprised that we haven't brought that up as possibly an influence on Len Wiseman and the Underworld films.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Gun Kata, Christian Bale.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
A lot of it. Oh, I saw it, back
in the theater.
Back when?
Yeah.
Not in the theater, but I saw it shortly after.
You can tell the truth. It's okay.
I remember really enjoying it, and I remember I thought you were a little hard on it, but I also haven't seen it since I rented it that time.
No, it's not that great. I
think it's better than your
Okay. I'll watch it again. Deal? I'll watch it again.
We just need to find a list, and then we can both put it on. We can both watch it.
All right.
Pete, I have a great idea.
What?
We periodically have these bonus episodes for members. Right?
Andy.
Original science fiction, Pete. We have an original science fiction series.
Yes.
I think maybe for our December movie, we do Equilibrium.
Let's do Equilibrium. Let's do it.
Yeah,
let's do Equilibrium. Oh, and it fits in our double-fisted gunplay meta conversation. Andy, there's just, you are a gift to synchronicity right now. I mean, you just chef's kiss. Perfect.
Some people call it an equilibrium that I provide.
Okay. You may have taken it too far. Let's go ahead and rein it in a little bit. All right. It's cool when I do it for you. Not so cool when you do it for yourself. All right.
Okay. What else do we have? I feel like we've talked about a lot of my tropes, a lot of my issues. Oh, I just have to say, okay, we introduced the vampire pack, right? We have kind of a small survival pack of vampires still trying to make it. And we meet them through, what's his name? Theo James, who I'm always associate with the Divergent franchise.
Yeah, it's because he was born to play that.
Exactly. As 4, I think, is who he was over there. But here he's David, the vampire, son of Thomas, who is Charles Dance. He plays Thomas, the head of this small coven that we have here.
Who's suddenly in everything. It all comes back to Mank, right? Because we have Charles Dance, who was in this, and we have, what's his name, who was Dracula, and it all comes back to
Gary Oldman, right?
Gary Oldman,
exactly.
Right. All right.
No, it's very funny. But I just have to say, Theo James, he's fine. He fits this world well. And actually, Charles Dance does too. He feels very much like an old vampire, just like Bill Nye does. Like the two of them feel born to be in this type of thing. But
100%.
holy cow, Charles Dance cannot speak very well with vampire teeth in his mouth, especially when he's doing Latin. He was lisping all the time. Like, I just felt bad for the guy. Like, he doesn't know how to wrap his mouth around words once he has those little fake teeth in his
It's
mouth.
amazing. That is an amazing critique for a guy like Charles Dance. Really, that's what you're going to get me on.
Right.
Also, Charles Dance, what are you doing in this movie, man? What are you doing?
Because they came to him and said, you know, we did have Derek Jacobi in this franchise.
Yeah, truth.
So he said, oh, well, if
Derek would
does
do it, yes. Oh, yeah. All right. The only other thing I had was, can we just reflect a little bit more on the needles in the eyeballs? That is uncool. I'm up for all kinds of horror and stuff like that, action violence in this movie. I really am. But the eyeball needle thing was, I was glad I was sitting down. Ooh.
I saw that and I was like, wow, Pete might be flat on the floor at this particular point. Because that was some gross stuff. I don't think I've ever seen a plunge into an eyeball before.
Well,
but now I have. Check that off my list. Bucket list. One more thing done.
Kate Beckinsale is back in this movie after giving up the lead role in the third movie to Rona Mitra. And so now she's back in the saddle. And how'd she do as Selene?
I mean, she's fine. I did have a question for you. So she's frozen for 12 years, which presumably is different than what I never remember what their titles were, but Bill Nye or Victor
the
and
Marcus
and Amelia, the elders.
Yeah.
I presume,
they were dehydrated.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
very
say.
Different.
I presume this is different because she just the glass is broken and she's fine.
She's fine.
She's not all shriveled and dehydrated and doesn't need tubes.
Dehydrated.
It's only been 12 years.
Would you say maybe preserved? Is preserved I think dehydrated is better. I think dehydrated.
I think
dehydrated vampires.
Yeah, because they have to hydrate them. They literally have to pour blood into them.
That's true.
To bring them back to life. But I was questioning that. Is that just because they've been in there for 100 years? I don't know.
Yeah.
Why do I ask these questions?
I don't know why you ask these questions. I don't know.
Anyway, it's okay. Here's something else that we learned, though. This apparently is a familial part of the evolution when you have an immortal / vampire and a lichen / vampire mate and they have a child. Now there is a new evolved function that they have where they can see through each other's eyes.
Yes,
or at
this
least
is different than blood reading.
It's confusing because Selene seems to be able to see through her daughter's eyes. Did we ever see that her daughter could also see through her mother's eyes?
I thought the daughter could only see through her father's eyes.
Yeah, so it's a weird
yeah.
I don't know.
The daughter only gets, so it's a trio, but they don't go both ways.
Yeah, right.
It only goes one way.
And he can't see through Selene's eyes. So it's only
right.
So Selene really gets nothing out of this.
She gets nothing out of this.
Power.
No.
I did find that it was a funny new power to introduce because all I could think about was, wow, there are going to be points as this kid grows up that are going to be really uncomfortable for all three of them to be seeing.
That's right. There will be a 16, 15, 16, 17-year-old who's, I don't know. There will be substance abuse. There will be budding vampire sexuality.
Exactly. There will be things that no parent should have to see through the eyes of their
child. And probably
child.
Things that the parents aren't going to want the daughter seeing, frankly, because if you've watched any of these movies, the parents are horrible and they kill people a lot.
Yeah.
So let's run through some more of the people we've got. Selene, we talked about Stephen Ray, who's here and he's fine, and Michael Ealy, Theo James. Anybody else really stand out for you? Chris Holden Reed as Quint.
No one stood out really, but the only one that really stood out, and it was only because I was like, oh, what is he doing in this film, was Wes Bentley, who pops up and then promptly gets killed, and he's not even credited. He's an uncredited actor. I'm like, that was a strange addition to throw Wes Bentley in here only to have him offed so
As
suddenly.
Generic antigen scientist, you mean?
Right. That would be him. Yeah. Let's have this really interesting red shirt scientist, but let's get Wes Bentley to play him.
Let's get Wes Bentley to do it. It's so weird to have this guy who's such a talent to throw him. You know, he's friends with somebody.
Yeah, right.
To make that
I did
work.
think it was interesting seeing Stephen Ray pop up in this film because he had been in an interview with the vampire. And so I feel like perhaps for him, this was just another opportunity to actually check that box, marking off another supernatural creature that he could actually be. So
yeah,
I wonder what will be next.
A cinematography by Scott Kevin is our man behind the camera here. And once again, I think if you're going to give credit where credit is due, that credit belongs in adapting this universe to look exactly like the rest of the universe has always looked. If that's what you're going for, he did a fantastic job. 48 credits. He's done a lot of stuff, and frankly, like some of his best work is some of his most recent work, which is on the show Gotham, which I'm a huge fan of Gotham. I thought it was great, and some of the episodes that he did, the I Am Bane episode, Trial of Jim Gordon, like he actually is behind the camera on some really exceptional superhero TV stuff. It was really good. He's also been behind some. When you look at these. The properties he's been behind, right? Gotham and Outcast and CBI Cyber and Constantine, Mortal Kombat Legacy, they all have kind of an achingly similar vibe to Underworld and Underworldia, which I think is funny.
Yeah, very much. I mean, I don't know how much I have to say about it. I just feel like cinematography, the music, the crew, like all of the crew really had to dictate, watch these first films and
do
then
that
just
again.
do exactly that same thing.
Yep.
Yeah. I have one little bit of interesting footnote, I suppose, to all of this as far as the world of kind of sequels and remakes, I suppose. I know we have one more of these movies to still talk about, but Kevin Grevioux, who had been one of the creators of this, also wrote the film I, Frankenstein. Do you remember that film, I, Frankenstein?
I do remember that film.
Yeah, with Aaron Eckhart. And Stuart Beatty directed it, was one of the writers and directed it. Kevin Grevioux, I think, came up with the story and wrote the graphic novel, and then Stuart Beatty wrote the screenplay. Well, interestingly, that came out in 2014, and Kevin Grevioux had planned on it being a crossover film with this universe.
With this?
Yeah, right. That was kind of his intention, was kind of making a big crossover, and he had planned it that way with the graphic novel.
Both of those movies are so blue.
Right. Yeah, he said in a pre-release interview that in an early draft of his screenplay, Beckinsale would have made a post-credit cameo appearance as Selene, and that there would have been Underworld Easter eggs. But alas, none of it was used, and so we ended up without that fantastic crossover event.
Fantastic, you say? Maybe.
And then just, I think, going back to your the point you made about Resident Evil Retribution in 2012, turns out that they had actually talked about doing a crossover with the Resident Evil franchise as well.
I actually think a crossover between the Underworld and Resident Evil universes would have been amazing, particularly right now. We just discovered that all of humanity sees the Underworld characters as a virus, and then we unleash the actual umbrella virus on the rest of the world. I am all in for it. I am absolutely all in for it.
Also, this one I think might make the most sense. Kate Beckinsale said that they were actually planning a crossover with the Blade series, but because, which would have been, I guess, the fourth of the Blade films. I think they only made 3 of those, right?
Right.
But they ended up canceling all of that, of course, because Marvel decided, we're going to really push on all of these things, including Blade, and bring that into the MCU. So that was the end of the conversations with that.
I think that was probably smart. I think that would have been, as they say in the Underworld universe, a tainting factor to Blade, not Underworld.
Although, I don't know, those later Blade films. I
hardly remember Blade Trinity, but I do. Jessica Biel, we've talked about this on the show when she shoots the arrow and destroys the $30,000 camera because she hits a bullseye right in the middle of the lens.
Right.
That's my favorite Blade story.
That was a great story.
I have no memory of what the thing was about.
Right. Yeah, I don't either.
All right. How to do it award season.
It had 1.
Was it a Razzie? Was it a
wasn't.
TNA award, Andy? Because those are disappointing.
I know. At the BMI Film and TV Awards, that's music, the Paul Hasslinger, we've talked about him a number of times, he actually was the winner of the BMI Film Music Award in 2012. And but it's one of those things where, the BMI Film Music Award, everybody's a winner, Pete. Everybody's a winner. Really, truly.
It's the honorable
16,
mention.
18, 20, 22, 24. 24 nominees. 24 winners.
Oh, Andy.
But hey,
it
did better
soccer.
than Rise of the Lycans.
All right. How did it do at the box office?
Well, Mårlind's and Stein's entry into this franchise cost the most of any of the films, $70 million or $78.4 million in today's dollars. That is almost double the last one. This film opened January 20th, 2012, opposite Red Tails, Haywire, and the limited release of Coriolanus in the #1 spot, bumping out Contraband. Remember that one?
No.
Neither do I. This film went on to earn $62.3 million domestically and $98 million internationally for a total gross of $179.6 million in today's dollars, more than any of the films in the franchise. That leaves it with an adjusted profit per finished minute of $1.14 million.
It's pretty good, right?
Yeah, it's
people are watching this movie.
Yeah, yes, they were.
I don't want to step on anybody else's fandom, Andy. That's not why we're here. Because honestly, I feel like this movie, as much as we're kind of down on this movie, I did have a good time. The things that fatigued me were fatiguing, but my goodness, the things that they did with such exuberance, some of the stunts, some of the CG didn't work as well as I would have hoped it would have worked, especially as an evolution off the third movie. It felt like some shortcuts might have been taken, but the stunt work, the rope work, I had a good time. And I think maybe we should take it to the mat.
I think we should, yeah.
Head over to flicktart.com/thenextreel. You'll see the list of all the movies we've ever talked about on this very show. If you swipe over in your show notes, tap the word Flickchart, it should take you straight over to the Flickchart database where you can add this movie to your catalog and see how it stands up against ours.
First up, we have Underworld Awakening or Il Postino, the Postman.
Well, Il Postino.
It's the Postman, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Underworld Awakening or Piranha? Well, I'll take Joe Dante.
Yeah, I'll take Joe Dante. Well, toxic. It's just the benefits of toxins
just like Brittany,
to the world, right?
Underworld Awakening or Near Dark?
Near Dark.
I'll take Near Dark. Underworld Awakening or Next Friday?
I'll take Underworld Awakening. Yeah.
Yeah. Underworld Awakening or The Crazies? The original 1973 film. I'll take The Crazies. Underworld Awakening or Wendy and Lucy?
Underworld Awakening.
Wendy and Lucy.
Here we go.
All right. 1, 2, 3.
Scissors.
Rock. Wendy and Lucy takes it. Underworld Awakening or Dinner for Schmucks?
Dinner for Schmucks.
Yeah, I guess so. Dinner for Schmucks. Underworld Awakening or Alien Resurrection? 2 number 4s.
Andy.
I'll take Alien Resurrection.
I think it's Alien Resurrection.
Yeah, it's got some.
It's got the
moments.
swimming sequence. It's good. There's
it's got
good
the
stuff.
sequence in the with the lab with all the mutated.
Mutated ones. All right, I'll give it Resurrection.
Underworld Awakening or Friday After Next, just in time for the holidays.
I might lean on Friday After Next. This
I'm
one's
going to say Underworld
particularly
Awakening.
tricky. Really?
Yeah. They're both,
Okay. All right.
about on level there.
Underworld Awakening it is.
All right. Well, that lands Underworld Awakening in spot 451 on our chart. 451 out of 482 films puts it at about a 6%, pretty far down the list.
That's pretty bad. How'd it do on your list?
It landed better, 3908 out of 4521, or a 14%.
This puts it at 1,069 on my list out of 1,478. According to the algorithm, if I were to go over to letterboxd.com/thenextreel, this should be a 1.5 star movie. The question is, did I have 1.5 stars worth of fun or more stars worth of fun?
You rated Rise of the Lycans 1.5 stars with no heart.
I think this is a 2-star for me.
That's what you did for Evolution.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it. You know what? I'd even go 2.5 stars of fun.
Oh wow, okay.
Because I think I would rate this one as higher than Evolution.
I would rate this as just below Evolution. I rated that 2.5 stars with a heart, and this one I would do 2 stars with a heart. So I feel like we're right there, but just a little.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Each
so
other.
where does that put us as an average? 2.25.
2.25, yeah. So
With a
on
heart.
Letterboxd, it'll round up to 2.5 with a heart. Yeah,
All right.
yeah. Not a great movie, but I still had fun with it.
Yeah, it was
It's
fine.
I'm finding that you really cannot ask the questions that we're asking when
Truly.
you go through these films.
We break these movies by even being a part of this conversation completely. But we have finished the fourth one. That's right, the fourth Underworld movie. Where do we go from here?
Believe it or not, we are going to be ending this franchise next week. We're going to be talking about Underworld Blood Wars. You've already alluded to that, from 2016. So the final film will be coming up next week.
Just wait, everybody. It's Snow Selene.
When the movie ends,
Our conversation begins. Amazon giveth, Andrew.
as Amazon always doeth.
Oh, Amazon. Yeah, I didn't.
At
go
least
there.
it did for
I
me.
went with the kids. Yeah, I went with the kids. Got to go with the kids. I feel like now I've done enough with the kids. I got to stick it out with the kids at
You
Comic
got to do it. Yep.
Got to
Gotta
do it.
What do the kids have to say?
The kids. Oh, Andy, there's so many that I want to talk about. First of all, let me say that common sense says this should be 17 plus. The parents say this should also be 17 plus. Common sense, however, says it's a 2-star movie. Parents say it's a 4-star movie. Kids say this is the oldest rated movie yet at 15 plus. So the kids are warning other kids about this movie at a higher rate than or a higher rating than any of the previous movies.
Interesting.
They generally like it. There were some critical reviews that I thought were funny, and some where, you know what, here's an 11-year-old who says, "Stop being so serious. This is a 5-star movie. Seriously, I watched it alone. I was not scared, and I'm a girl. This movie is awesome for tweens like me. I loved it." Oh, come on. Let's not be so gendered, shall we, 11-year-old? Boys can be scared of stuff, too.
Right.
But I think, the general consensus is wrapped up in 15 years old, movie lover 2569, who says it's a 5-star movie. Love this movie. Has bloody violence and swearing.
Well, they are right.
Which
Definitely
is
a lot of
about-
bloody violence and swearing.
Literally 3 curse words, lots of fighting blood, and 12-year-old rips out a werewolf's throat, plus many stabbings, and characters stick their hands inside people. All of
Yes,
it is
they do.
correct. They nailed it. They nailed it.
Truly.
What do you got?
All right, I went high over at Amazon. I went for the 5
Bold.
stars because I like seeing people who really love these films. This is by Topher Ray, gave it 5 stars and said, "How do you channel the cultural consciousness of an epic that has existed since before Beowulf was written into a pulp action movie about werewolves and vampires? The writers of Underworld Awakening have done it, and have done it well."
Wow, I'm not sure that they know when Beowulf was written. Either the epic poem or the Angelina Jolie movie. Oh well. Thanks, Amazon. It's hard to believe we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
You're telling me producing this show week after week is so much fun, but it does require a lot of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Your purchase is made through our links. Give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
We covered a lot of great movies that were adapted from other material in Season 10.
Our Originals page at thenextreel.com/originals is where listeners can purchase the source material behind all our adapted film discussions. It helps support the show at no extra cost when you buy through our links.
In our foreign language Best Picture nominees series, we looked at several adaptations, including Z, The Postman Il Postino, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Letters from Iwo Jima.
We hit the high seas with In the Heart of the Sea from Nathaniel Philbrick's nonfiction book for our Aquatic Killers series.
Definitely a weaker entry in that series.
I bet the book is better.
Oh, me too.
Member bonus episodes featured adaptations like Gone Girl, The Russia House, Ivanhoe, The Hot Rock, The Big Heat, and Naked Lunch.
Oliver Stone brought not just original stories, but also adaptations like Conan the Barbarian, Scarface, Year of the Dragon, 8 Million Ways to Die, Talk Radio, and Born on the 4th of July.
Mary Herron's disturbingly insightful American Psycho was adapted from the Bret Easton Ellis book.
You like Huey Lewis in the News?
Oh my God, it even has a watermark.
And of course, more Stephen King with The Mist, The Green Mile, and The Shawshank Redemption for our King a la Darabont series.
Find links to all of these books and more adapted films on our Originals page. That's thenextreel.com/originals. Every purchase supports our show.
Get the full list of books that we've talked about and start your next read today at thenextreel.com/originals.